Bloodbath, the NKVD prison massacres of 1941. In recent years, the world has finally begun to confront the true scale of Soviet atrocities during World War II. We speak of Katyn, the mass deportation of the Chechens, and the horrific violence following the fall of Berlin. But one of the bloodiest chapters remains shrouded in shadows, barely whispered in the pages of history books. This is the story of the summer of 1941, when the NKVD turned their prisons into slaughterhouses. When the Third Reich and the Soviet Union carved up Eastern Europe, millions in Poland, the Baltics, and Bessarabia woke up under the iron fist of Moscow. Stalin's Sovietization was simple, rule by the whip. The NKVD, the People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs, began systematic sweeps. They arrested anyone who could lead, think, or resist. Politicians, priests, intellectuals, and nationalists were vanished into a network of overcrowded cells. They weren't arrested for what they had done, but for what they might do. June 1941, Operation Barbarossa begins. The Wehrmacht advances with shocking speed. As the Red Army retreated in chaos, the NKVD faced a problem. Thousands of political enemies were still locked in border zone prisons. To the Soviets, these prisoners were a fifth column, potential collaborators for the Nazis. There were no trains left for deportations to Siberia. The tracks were needed for troops. The NKVD chose their traditional solution, mass murder. In a matter of weeks, tens of thousands were summarily executed. In Lviv's Brigitki prison, 12,000 inmates were shot after a failed escape attempt. In Sambir, the NKVD simply blew up the prison with dynamite, burying 1,200 people alive. The list goes on. From Estonia to Ukraine, the prisons became charnel houses. There was no time for burials, no time for records. Bodies were piled in courtyards or left rotting in cells as the Soviet guards fled east. While estimates vary, historians believe up to 100,000 lives were extinguished in those few weeks. But the horror didn't end with the gunfire. As German forces arrived, they used the piles of corpses as a grotesque propaganda tool. They invited the public to witness the carnage, framing the Soviet crimes as Jewish Bolshevik atrocities. This spark ignited a new fire. Local nationalists, fueled by grief and manipulation, launched brutal pogroms before the Nazis even began their own organized genocide. The 1941 massacres illustrate the ultimate terror of totalitarianism. In these regimes, it is not just your actions that are criminalized, it is your very existence. They were murdered for who they were and what they represented. Thousands of voices silenced in the chaos of retreat. History may have tried to bury them, but the soil of Eastern Europe remembers.